Hello folks, it's me, DeMontropolis, and here I am with the definitive boss guide to Mega Man 4. Here I'll be discussing all of Mega Man 4's bosses in great detail for both newcomers and veterans. Well, that's actually a lie, because this time I am not alone. I've called up a friend of mine to collaborate in the development of this boss guide. A bigger fan of Mega Man 4 than I am, I introduce you to the Fanni Pack.
Hi everyone! Hey everyone, I'm Fan. I'm very new to content creation as a whole, and I've been keeping in touch with Dem before his very first review, so when I found out that Dem was making a Mega Man 4 boss guide, I wanted to chime in, because as Dem said, I am a huge Mega Man 4 fan.
For better or worse.
For better, of course.
At least it's better than Mega Man 2.
Ugh, not this shit again.
Truth be told, but we got a video to start.
That's a conversation for another day, but alas, we've got a boss guide to cover. Out of 16 bosses in the game, I'll be tackling 11 of them, and the Fanni Pack here will tackle the other 5. A new addition for us to take into account here is the Charge Buster. At full charge, it universally does 3 damage to all bosses, with one exception in this game. To account for this, all usage of Charge Buster will be discussed in the Buster Only category. The last tidbit I have is that boss iframes are much longer than in the previous titles, so generally speaking, you want to prioritize charging at all times with the Buster. You ready to hit the road, Fan?
Of course I am! Let's get the show on the road!
To your position! I'll kick us off. What the hell, Fan? I mean, go to ring, man, not pedal dance on camera.
Right. Later!
See you later. Well, time to get serious. Let's jump right in. DCN 25, Bright Man. 8 damage on contact, 4 damage on buster shots, 0 freeze on flash stopper. Bright Man has one of the most convoluted patterns in the game, though he may seem simple at first. His 2 primary attack choices are randomly decided. His first is to high jump to your position, which is always done to kick off the fight. His second is to shoot 3 buster shots in place, each of which being aimed either straight forward or at 2 diagonal angles. Each of the 3 shots will take one of these 3 trajectories, but the exact order of how is randomly decided. Brightman's main gimmick is his Flash Stopper, which will immediately freeze you in place, much like Flashman's Time Stopper. However, the stun lasts for much longer and his jumping attack becomes impossible to dodge as it directly targets you. Buster Only. The single biggest factor you need to know with Brightman is that he only uses Flash Stopper when his HP equals 16, 8, or 4. Thus, if these values can be bypassed, Brightman will not use the attack. The easiest way to pull this off is to fire 1 lemon at him, then defeat him using only charge buster shots afterwards, which do 3 damage. As for his other attacks, you may find that the randomly chosen paths of his shots can be tricky to react to and dodge consistently. Thus, the best way to fight Brightman is actually up close. Just before he does one of his 2 actions, you need to already be in the air. If Brightman attacks you with his buster, you will have already dodged the first shot and be ready to short hop over the rest of them, regardless of the trajectories. And since you're close to him, his jump will travel a very short distance to reach you. Give the strategy enough practice and he should cause little trouble. Weapons. Brightman's primary weakness is Rain Flush, which can hit him anywhere on the screen and does 4 damage, but it requires the entire ammo bar. He also has a secondary weakness to Skull Barrier, which does 2 damage and makes it easier to fight him up close, though you also need the entire ammo bar to defeat him. However, none of these weapons by themselves will stop him from using Flash Stopper, so the same strategy of 1 buster shot first should be applied when using these weapons. You could also start off the fight by hitting him once with Skull Barrier and then sticking to Rain Flush from there. DCN 26, Toadman. 8 damage on contact, 8 damage on Rain Flush. Toadman is by far the easiest boss in the game, and is widely considered one of, if not the easiest boss in the entire series. If left alone, Toadman will stand still forever. If you shoot while he is standing still, he will leap onto your position. If Toadman stands still for too long, he will start dancing, which will eventually trigger Rain Flush. Rain Flush is an unavoidable screen nuke of acid rain that does massive damage. However, if you hurt Toadman while he's dancing, the Rain Flush gets cancelled. Buster only. Having this pattern in mind, there are two strategies to fighting him. The first strategy is to be aggressive and shoot constantly once you've got him in your crosshairs. Thanks to your attacks, he'll be restricted to just jumping at you. Don't get carried away with your firing, because if you aim in the wrong direction, he might be able to squeak in a Rain Flush. Once you got him just jumping around, you can slide back and forth in rhythm or simply back up to take him around the room. The second strategy is to get up in his face and only shoot when he starts dancing. This is the much safer way to stop him from using Rain Flush, and also keeps him stuck in place. As long as you do not shoot under any other circumstance, Toadman will spend the entire fight stationary. Weapons. Toadman's weakness is Drill Bomb, which does 4 damage. The same Buster-only strategies can be applied here, thanks to the identical trajectory, except you can't shoot constantly. Rather, you could just wait until the boss iframes expire before shooting another Drill Bomb, and you should be good to go. DCN 27, Drill Man. 8 damage on contact, 3 damage on Drill Bomb, 2 damage on Drill Bomb Explosion. Drill Man's attack pattern can be rather tedious. He pulls from a pool of attacks randomly, but never repeats the attacks too many times. His first and primary attack is to drill underground, making him almost completely invincible. After roughly 5 seconds, he will emerge from where you are standing, jumping out quite a bit in the air, in hopes of sharking you from underneath, though this puts him back in the arena. His second attack is to high jump in your general direction. His third and most complex attack is known as the Drill Bomb Walk. He will walk forward in your general direction until he reaches a wall, but he will briefly stop after walking a set distance to fire a drill bomb straight forward in your general direction, though this will not change his walking direction. The drill bomb dings shots and will explode shortly after its release, or when it hits a wall. It's important to note that the more distance Drill Man has to walk, the more drill bombs he's going to be shooting at you. Buster only. When Drill Man goes underground, the easiest way to avoid him is to go to a corner and start charging your Buster after he disappears. Once you're fully charged, you can just walk from one corner to the next, no sliding needed, and Drill Man will miss you every time. Once he's out, you should be within a medium screen distance so you can react to his next move. If he jumps very high, slide under him. With the Drill Bomb Walk, you should have his attack timings internalized for the best results, but generally speaking, once he starts walking, you should wait roughly half a second before jumping over Drill Man. This is because he will stop for a bit and fire his first Drill Bomb forward. Your jump should clear both the Drill Bomb and Drill Man himself, and once you land back down, keep doing jumps to dodge the subsequent Drill Bombs until Drill Man reaches the wall. Don't forget that this is also the best opportunity to deal damage, and Buster shots should be fired each time you land. Weapons. Drill Man is weak to Dive Missile. Unlike most other primary weaknesses, this weapon does 3 damage instead of the usual 4. Unfortunately, Dive Missile cannot home in on Drill Man when he's underground, but it is very useful when dodging his high jump and Drill Bomb Walk, as you do not need to be aiming at Drill Man and can simply concentrate on staying alive. Lastly, there is Rain Flush. While it is not a weakness, it is the only weapon that can damage Drill Man while he's underground, so if he managed to retreat with just 1 HP, Rain Flush can be used for the killing blow. DCN 28, Pharaoh Man. 4 damage on contact, 2 damage on Pharaoh Shot, 6 damage on Pharaoh Wave. Pharaoh Man's arena is uneven, having a 4-tile hill at the center with steep inclines, allowing him to use his moves to his advantage. Pharaoh Man has several attacks that he can pull from randomly, but your positioning may influence him into doing certain attacks more frequently. Pharaoh Man's main movement is to do 2 jumps in one direction, a short jump and a higher jump. At the apex of each of these jumps, Pharaoh Man will throw a little Pharaoh Shot at your position. If you're too far away, Pharaoh Man may instead jump all the way to just in front of your position while attacking with the little Pharaoh Shot. He can also do very high jumps that will land on top of you, but he will not throw anything. Lastly, Pharaohman will charge himself up by pointing into the air, which ends with him shooting a fast and powerful Pharaoh wave straight ahead. Note in the rematches that his arena will be flat, given he's the only Robot Master who has an uneven arena. Buster only. Pharaohman's first attack is always 2 jumps with the little Pharaoh shots. You can jump right away to bait the first above you, then jump a second time to dodge the second one. From here on, Pharaohman's attack pool can be rigged by staying close to him. This scares him into using Pharaoh Wave most of the time, which is pretty easy to dodge. Even if he has you cornered, wait until he flashes at the brink of his charge up, then do a full jump to let the Pharaoh Wave zoom right under you. Do this as many times as needed until he jumps. Once you notice it, slide immediately and take his place. Now that Pharaohman is cornered, it is much easier to jump over Pharaoh Waves, but if he does a shorter jump, followed by another jump towards the center, you gotta slide and then catch up to him. Should he do this, react accordingly to any following movements until you can get back into close proximity. Once you've learned what he can do, it's all about proper timing and reaction, leading to an easy victory. Weapons. Pharaohman's main weakness is Flash Stopper. Unlike any other boss, Pharaohman will be completely frozen in place by the Flash Stopper, allowing you to freely damage him using the Buster. He will remain helpless as long as you have ammo to utilize, but there is a rare chance where you could get a lot of downtime in between Flash Stopper freezes, even despite you mashing the shoot button. This is very noticeable if he was in motion while frozen, which can lead to cheap damage taken. To prevent this at the start of the fight, jump into the boss gate and hold right to land on the middle left platform. This is where Pharaohman will land, and it conveniently puts you a bit closer to him, so when he throws his first Pharaoh shot, jump over it and slide under a second jump. Use Flash Stopper as soon as he lands, and the strategy will guarantee safety from any cheap shots. Lastly, Pharaohman has 2 other weaknesses, Terrain Flush and Dust Crusher. Both of them do 2 damage, and the latter is especially useful as a secondary option.
DCN-029 Ringman, 8 damage on contact and 4 damage on the Ring Boomerang. Ringman's pattern is never random, but rather relies on a set of movements that repeat itself over and over again. However, he can still be a challenging foe due to how fast his attacks are. He will always start the fight by throwing a Ring Boomerang at your position. Once this Ring Boomerang returns, he will make a big jump and throw another Ring Boomerang. While that boomerang is active, he'll drop down and run towards your location. Once he overshoots it, that pattern resets back to square one. It's important to note that Ringman can retaliate your attacks while running by throwing another Ring Boomerang. Buster only. Before starting the fight, charge your Mega Buster. This way, you'll be able to start the fight with 3 points of damage dealt to Ringman off the bat. The first cycle is always the hardest, so start the fight by releasing that Charge Buster, dealing those 3 hits of damage. Then, dodge the first Ring Boomerang he throws at you by jumping over it twice. Once he jumps and throws the second Ring Boomerang, be close to him so you're ready to jump over him once he starts running. You'll be able to deal some damage without worrying about his retaliation whatsoever. For the rest of the fight, you want to be as close to him as possible, but at a comfortable distance. This makes dodging the Ring Boomerangs easier. When the cycle repeats and when Ringman jumps again, stand still and jump over Ringman when he comes to you. Repeat this process for the rest of the fight. Weapons. Ringman's weakness is the Pharaoh Shot, which allows you to aim at Ringman, dealing 6 damage. The uncharged variant deals 2 damage. Ringman has 0 secondary weaknesses nor immunities. You can still use the Buster only strategy, but now you can throw your Pharaoh Shots diagonally upwards to deal damage while Ringman is jumping, making the fight much easier.
DCN 30, Dustman. 8 damage on contact, 4 damage on Dust Crusher, 4 damage on Dust Crusher Shrapnel. Dustman is one of the easiest bosses in the game. He pulls from his attacks randomly, but they are all very slow. Dustman's main attack is to shoot a Dust Crusher from his vacuum. Dust Crusher is a pile of scrap that gets shot forward. Once it aligns with your X position, it will split into 4 smaller shrapnel pieces that fly away in the diagonals. To dodge the full attack, you simply have to jump straight upwards. Dustman can also do high jumps, but they only go a set distance forward. Lastly, Dustman can try to suck you up for an attack using his vacuum, and he's invincible while sucking up. Buster only. Really, the only thing to talk about with Dustman is his Dust Crusher attack. If you're far away, you need to jump when it approaches a medium distance. It's a fast projectile, but the timing to avoid it successfully is very forgiving. It's better to jump late than to jump early, because with the latter, you might fall on the shrapnels. If Dustman has you cornered, pay attention to his animation. When his vacuum is on the last frame of producing the Dust Crusher inside, that's your cue to jump. As for his high jump, it's easy to react to with a slide. His sucking attack does not pull you in very quickly, so you can simply walk away from it and prepare a charge shot in the meantime. Weapons. Dustman's weakness is Ring Boomerang, which does 4 damage. Although it requires you to fight him within a mid-range distance, you can deal damage at a very fast rate as long as he isn't sucking.
DCN-031 Dive Man. 8 damage on contact, 8 damage for the torpedo spin, and 4 damage for the dive missile. Since Diveman's an underwater-themed robot master, his arena is completely submerged by water. He has 2 attacks based on your distance to him. If you're far away, he'll release 3 dive missiles at you. If you're close, he's going to spin at you. Diveman can do one of these attacks up to a total of 3 times before automatically switching to the other one no matter what the distance is. He will always start the fight by spinning at your location. From there, the distance intervals come to play. Although water lets you jump higher, doing this puts you at a vulnerable position to Diveman's signature attack, the homing dive missiles. Buster only. Just like any other boss fight, start the fight with a charged Mega Buster to deal that sweet 3 damage right away. When he starts to spin towards you, jump over him, but be careful not to jump too high, as he can deal some nasty damage. Your jump should stop accelerating by the purple highlight or the center of the screen. Any higher could cause Diveman to spin at you again or use his dive missiles to strike you down. Another thing to know is that you should always be as far away from him as possible. This way he doesn't charge at you and cause you to panic. When Diveman shoots his dive missiles, stay on the ground and spam the Mega Buster. You'll deal some damage while getting rid of his missiles as they get spawned. After 3 missiles, jump over his spin attack, slide away, and repeat this process until he's down. Weapons. Diveman is weak to the Skull Barrier, dealing 4 damage. However, this is a risk versus reward type of scenario. You can deal some good damage, but are you able to deal with Diveman being close to you? To get good damage with Skull Barrier, you want to start by making a small hop over Diveman and using Skull Barrier when you land close to him. When he switches to Dive Missile, stay close and keep using Skull Barrier to get rid of those missiles. Repeat this process until Diveman goes down. Diveman has a secondary weakness to Dust Crusher, dealing 3 damage, and is best used with the same close-up strategy. Also, Diveman best boy!
Shut up, fan! You're breaking protocol! Moving on. DCN-32 Skullman. 8 damage on contact, 4 damage on shots, 0 damage on Skull Barrier. Skullman's attack pattern is entirely dictated by your actions, meaning that he will stand in place and do nothing until you perform a certain action. Jumping and sliding do not trigger anything, but if you move while he is stationary, Skullman will aim his buster and fire 3 shots in a row, all of which are aimed at your position. If you shoot while he is stationary, Skullman will high jump or low jump in your general direction, depending on the distance in between you two. Though Skullman may occasionally jump straight up. Once he lands, he will put up a Skull Barrier. The Skull Barrier does no damage, but completely protects Skullman from the buster, even if you shoot through the shield. Once the barrier disappears, Skullman will run towards your position and stop in place upon getting there. If he performs the same attack pattern twice in a row, he will instead do the other attack pattern, thus preventing you from cheesing his pattern too easily. Buster only. Emphasis on the too easily, because I've got a fail-safe strategy that guarantees no damage. Enter the boss room with a charge shot, then release it when the fight starts. Do not press the shoot button right away to charge another shot, or Skullman will jump over it. Slide once to gain some distance, then trigger a shooting pattern twice by simply tippy-toeing a pixel. The shooting pattern can be dodged by jumping over the first shot, baiting the second over your head, then jumping over the third one. You can get in 2 lemons during this pattern, and after you shoot the second one, hold the button to charge, and release for a free hit in between his actions. After a second shooting pattern, slide again to get closer. He'll do a very small jump and you can back off. Charge up while waiting for his skull barrier. Once he puts it down, release and slide away. Now you're in position to repeat the same strategy with 2 shooting patterns followed by baiting his jump, and if you do this correctly, he'll always go down before he can run a second time. Weapons. Skullman's weakness is Dust Crusher, which does 4 damage. Same strategy can be applied here, you just don't have a charge shot available. Alternatively, he takes 2 damage from Rain Flush. While not enough to kill him, it is the only weapon that can damage him through the skull barrier. First Cossack boss, Mothraia. 7 damage on body contact, 7 damage on spike contact, 4 damage on energy shot. The arena takes place on 2 layers of pipes that make up a bridge. Mothraia spends most of the fight simply hovering left and right along the upper area of the screen at a slow speed, bobbing up and down. The red flashing orb below her face is the weak point, though it attacks every 2 seconds by firing an energy shot at your position. Mothraia's main method of attack is to use her spike-tipped proboscis, which has 2 variations. Her first is to immediately dip down below to floor level, which has no telegraph and serves to surprise you if you're hiding under her. Her second and more dangerous attack has her stop moving and stop shooting energy shots for a few seconds before slamming her proboscis down like a wrecking ball. This is easier telegraphed by the spike shaking, but it actually destroys one chunk of a pipe layer, changing the terrain. If she attacks the same chunk later down the road, it opens up a bottomless pit and can be extremely dangerous for you. Mothraia only spikes 3 set areas of the floor, left, center, and right, throughout the fight, and she'll never target the corners. Buster only. Even with Mothraia having these limitations, you should aim to defeat her as quickly as possible before the terrain becomes more awkward to traverse, so use charge shots at all times to speed up the battle. When the fight begins, Mothraia always moves right, so stay on the left side until Mothraia passes through the middle on her way left. Then you can slide under her. While bobbing up and down, Mothraia's weak point can rise above the apex range that the Buster can cover, so you have to make sure the weak point is within shooting range before releasing your charge shots. Dodging the energy balls that she fires at you is simple. Although there is no telegraph, they do stand out from the black background and have a consistent interval. If she doesn't fire a shot at you within an expected interval, she's going to drop her proboscis very soon. If you stay on top of her with her buster shots, then Mothraia should only get away with destroying just 2 chunks before going down. Weapons. Mothraia's main weakness is Ring Boomerang, which does 4 damage. Although you have to stay within a closer distance, this weapon will defeat her fast enough that you'll only be able to spike 1 chunk of the ground before her defeat. If this weapon is not desired, she has several secondary weaknesses. Drill Bomb and Dust Crusher both do 2 damage, and can safely defeat her from a farther range.
Second Cossack boss, Square Machine. 6 damage for the Jewel Contact, 4 for the Screen Crush, and 4 for the Energy Shot. Square Machine will spend the majority of the fight split into 3 different parts, all of which move in 3 different speed intervals: fast, medium, and slow. Fast and medium speed can crush you along the walls. To avoid this, Mega Man can slide under the lowest part to dodge the crushing. If the Square Machine did not move at a slow speed, it will continue moving and go down each speed level one by one until it reaches the slowest speed. When Square Machine goes into its slow-mo, it will always connect. When connected, the boss's weakness point, the red jewel, opens up, and you will shoot 3 projectiles towards your position. In order to damage the jewel, you must jump on one of the 2 green platforms that alternate going up and down and shoot the jewel. Once it's done shooting, Square Machine will split up and reset its pattern. Buster only. When the fight starts, have your Mega Buster charged. If Square Machine chooses the fast or medium speed, slide under the lowest piece to avoid being crushed. If it chooses slow, jump on the lowest piece, then slide through the middle piece to get inside before it closes. Once it connects, bait the first projectile straight down and slide to the lowest platform available. After that, jump on that green platform, bait the second energy shot to go over your head, and shoot your charged Mega Buster within that range. Then repeat this for the other side. When Square Machine disconnects itself, slide under the middle piece and jump away from the lowest piece to exit safely. Keep on doing this and you'll defeat Square Machine with ease. Weapons. Square Machine's weakness is Dust Crusher, dealing 4 damage. The same strategy is still imperative to deal massive damage. It has a secondary weakness to Drill Bomb with the explosion and the drill itself dealing 2 damage. The same strategy should be used.
Third Cossack boss, Cockroach Twins. 8 damage on contact, 4 damage on straight shot, 4 damage on diagonal shot, 4 damage on shot spread, 6 damage on large shot. The arena is unique, and the only terrain to stand on are 3 platforms in the middle that can be jumped along. The room has spikes on the bottom, so you must be careful when jumping. But if you do fall, balloon or rush coil can be used to recover. The first Cockroach Twin appears out of the upper boss gate on the right. It stays on the ceiling and can move either at a slow speed or a fast speed, usually alternating but not always. During its movement, it will stop to attack every 1 to 2 seconds, and has 2 attacks to choose from. The first is to shoot a single projectile straight down from the tip of its head, and the second is to shoot 2 diagonal shots, one from each of its side cannons. Both of them are slow, but with the Cockroach Twin possibly hanging above you, it may get a little cramped trying to evade them. Once the first Cockroach Twin is defeated, the second one appears out of the lower boss gate on the right. It walks along the entire room, including the spikes, in a clockwise pattern, but always moves at a fast speed. The attack interval has been increased to about 4 to 5 seconds, but the attacks have been modified to suit the Cockroach Twins' new movement pattern. The first is to shoot a much larger and faster orb from the tip of its head directly at your position, and this does slightly more damage. The second is to shoot 4 diagonal shots, 2 from each of its side cannons. These ones spread out from each other more, but are still slow. Buster only. Ironically, Phase 1 poses more of a threat to hurt you if you stay on the left side, because the Cockroach Twin will just hang over you and shoot in awkward angles. To bypass this, jump to the middle platform, let the boss walk past you, and stay on the right side. This gets you away from the initial shots, and if the boss doesn't keep crawling right to get on top of you, it will quickly go down with enough charge shot pressure. Phase 2 attacks less frequently, and generally starts the first attack on the bottom left area. The attack intervals are synced up in a way that Cockroach Twin will stop short of its previous attack position in doing its next attack. With the wider area to move around though, it's unlikely that the shots will hit you. If you can predict where the boss will attack, there's not much else it can do. Keep the charge shots coming, and Phase 2 may only get to attack just a few times before going down. Weapons. The Cockroach Twins have several weaknesses that do roughly the same damage. The biggest highlight is Pharaoh Shot, and while it does 3 damage just like a Charge Buster would, holding it above your head makes it easy to hit the boss when it's on the ceiling, and it can be aimed as well. If that isn't desirable, Drill Bomb and Ring Boomerang both do 2 damage and make for good alternatives.
Final Cossack boss, Cossack Catcher. 8 damage on contact, 6 damage for the contact slam, and 2 for the shots. Cossack Catcher is a unique arena where the right part is elevated by a couple tiles. He is a very janky boss as he will become stationary every single time you slide. He'll start the fight remaining still for 2 to 3 seconds, so he's open to a charge shot. Cossack Catcher will move horizontally and will adjust itself vertically to try and grab you. If he grabs you, he'll raise you up and fling you back down, dealing great damage. It's also important to note that while grabbed, you cannot pause to use weapons or E-tanks. While moving, Cossack Catcher will fire his side cannons, which will shoot in 3 different trajectories: 0 degrees, 45 degrees, and 90 degrees. Buster only. Start the fight with a charged Buster shot and shoot it right at Cossack Catcher before he starts moving. The easiest strategy to do is to lure him to the left side of the screen and make a small hop to dodge the side cannon shots. Then slide so you don't get grabbed at all, and immediately slide to the upper portion of the arena. Charge your Mega Buster and deal some damage before he starts moving. The second Cossack Catcher starts moving, slide again to cancel his movement, and repeat this every single time he begins to move. With Cossack Catcher stunned, it gives you the perfect opportunity to deal some damage with your Mega Buster. When he is at 2 health, the battle is over, which will engage the cutscene that leads you to Wily's Fortress. Weapons. Cossack Catcher's weakness is Dust Crusher, dealing 2 damage. Wire can also be used to deal 1 damage per use. In order to use it, stand below Cossack Catcher, but to the left of the claw so you don't get grabbed, and spam the shit out of Wire. Spamming Wire also prevents Cossack Catcher from moving whatsoever. If done correctly, half of his HP will disappear. Cossack Catcher has no secondary weaknesses.
First Wily Boss, Metal Daddy. 7 damage on body contact, 3 damage on met contact. Metal Daddy starts the fight underneath his indestructible helmet, but quickly raises it. His weak point is his body, only vulnerable when he raises his helmet. After raising his helmet, he waits either 1 or 2 seconds before jumping in your direction. He may either do a shorter jump that is much tighter to avoid, or a longer jump that covers more distance, depending on where you are. As his jumping has no telegraph, this is important information to internalize. When he lands, the ground will shake and you have to jump off the ground to avoid getting stunned. Shortly after the stun, 4 metals will rain down from the ceiling inside their helmets, meaning they cannot be killed on their way down. They fall in a way so 2 of them are positioned near the middle and the other 2 are closer to the edges of the screen. When these mets land, the Metal Daddy hides under his helmet, while the mets rise out of their helmets and start walking off screen, to whichever side of the screen is closer. Getting stunned from the boss's landing means you will have a very little window to avoid the falling mets. Once they leave the screen, Metal Daddy repeats the pattern. Buster only. Metal Daddy's jump may do a lot of damage, but with proper anticipation, it's an easy attack to dodge. Basically, you want to be sliding once the 1-second timer goes off, because if Metal Daddy jumps, you'll already be in motion to get under him. If he doesn't jump, you can back off and better anticipate the jump on the 2-second interval. Either way, you want to be within a medium distance so Metal Daddy does a longer jump. For the falling mets, you can hide from most of the falling by staying in the corner. There's only one formation where mets can fall in the corner, and it's easy to see coming. If the first set falls in the middle left or middle right of the screen, you can better expect the possibility of the second set falling onto the corners and react accordingly. Weapons. Metal Daddy has several weaknesses that do roughly the same damage, so it's a bit tricky to tell which one is the most efficient. I would say it goes to Pharaoh Shot, and while it does 3 damage just like a charged Buster Shot would, it has some advantages. After you release the first Pharaoh Shot, you can charge the next one above your head. As you slide under a jumping Metal Daddy, he'll collide with it, and you can throw a 3rd charge after the iframes expire for a whopping 9 damage in 1 cycle. Other well-known weaknesses are Ring Boomerang and Dust Crusher, both of which do 2 damage and can serve as good alternatives.
Second Wily Boss, Taco Trash. 8 damage on contact, 6 damage for the fireball, 4 for the orange ball, and 0 for the orange ball explosion. Taco Trash is a giant machine that is positioned on the highest part of the arena. The arena has 2 platforms, each stationed on a rail shaped like a vertical oval. Taco Trash has 2 attacks that are randomly used with no limits. First, the fireball that is fired from the mouth cannon. Second, the giant ball that is shot from the garbage chute. It will explode on contact, but the explosion doesn't deal any damage. One thing to note is that these attacks are not telegraphed, which can give you a little trouble. The weak spot on Taco Trash is the green jewel on the head, which is reachable by the platforms on the rails. However, your shots must be on the money to deal damage. Buster only. Is always start the fight with a charged Buster Shot ready to go. After that, get to the nearest rail to Taco Trash as soon as possible. This way you will have an easier time dodging its ball and getting damage in. The second the platform is about to hit the same level as the eye is when you should release the charge shot to get a hit in. To dodge the fireball, just jump over it if the platform is descending, but if it's ascending, the best thing to do is to drop down and get back to the nearest platform. Weapons! Taco Trash is weak to Ring Boomerang, dealing 4 damage. However, there is a more viable strategy. Taco Trash has 2 Drill Bomb barriers acting as hitboxes for the fight. If you use Drill Bomb on those platforms, which are the bottom and the top portion of Taco Trash, these barriers will go away, allowing you to go inside the boss without taking damage at all. Now you are able to jump and shoot the weak point safely without getting hurt.
Third Wily Boss, Wily Machine 4. 6 damage on contact, 4 damage on energy shots. The first phase of the Wily Machine 4 dons a giant skull face, and the entire facade makes up the boss's weak point. This boss has a very simple pattern of hovering up and down without any horizontal movement. It attacks by shooting large purple energy shots from its mouth. The Wily Machine always attacks by shooting 3 shots in a row, and they simply travel in a slightly slanted downward straight line. After depleting the first energy gauge, the skull face is destroyed, revealing Dr. Wily at the controls and the mouth's cannon. The new weak point is the bright blue gem above the cannon. The second phase's pattern is a reverse of the first. Wily Machine 4 now only moves sideways in a semi-random pattern, but generally goes left and right. The large purple energy shots are now fired in a continuous streak with no break, and are always aimed at you. There is an exception to this, where you can safely stand under the Wily Machine and the shots will only go straight, unable to aim backwards. Buster only. Phase 1 is very simple and easy. If you stand right next to the skull, you can hide underneath its attacks and take shots at the jaw in between rounds. Don't actually be under the Wily Machine, as the bottom goes low enough to hit you. Going on to Phase 2, this is a whole other ballpark, definitely the most challenging boss to Buster only. In addition to the relentless assault, the blue gem is high enough that normal Buster shots can't actually reach it without rush coil. Only a charged Mega Buster shot at the apex of a jump can hit it. While Phase 2 may seem extremely hard to dodge given all these factors, there is a strategy. You should be moving in a general loop as to bait 2 of the energy shots to aim at the ground. This is done by baiting the first to aim very low, then going backwards so the second one aims at a diagonal angle. Jump forward to dodge the second energy shot and take a shot at the weak point. Since you are in the air, the third shot should go straight forward and miss you. If you get a good rhythm cycling around these shots, the Charge Buster can get to full power just in time for you to reach the apex of your next jump. If you think you're going to mess up or about to mess up, retreat under the Wily Machine to regain composure until you're ready to get back out there. Weapons. Phase 1 is weak to Ring Boomerang, which does 3 damage, and although it makes quite the irritating sound, this is the quickest way to overcome Phase 1. Phase 2 is weak to Drill Bomb, which does 4 damage. Due to the blue gem's altitude, the drill bomb by itself will ding off the body. As such, you'll need to time the button press as to detonate the drill bomb so the explosion hits the gem. Although using drill bomb is the quickest and most efficient method, there is a lesser known way to chip off damage. By hanging under the Wily Machine, you can use wire to hit the gem from below. If lucky, the wire will hit the gem once on the way up and potentially once again on the way down. And yes, wire only does 1 damage with each hit, but it's a safe way to chip at Wily's health from a safe area. Final boss, Wily Capsule. 6 damage on contact, 8 damage on energy ball. The room is completely pitch black, with only Mega Man being visible. The Wily Capsule remains hidden in the darkness and attacks you with 1 large energy ball. This attack is gathered together by massive energy, and once it forms, it becomes much larger and then fires itself at your position, going at a fast speed. It is a dangerous projectile, capable of killing you in 4 hits, though the telegraph does give away its location. The Wily Capsule is only visible in the brief split second that the energy ball is formed, from the big flash it creates, and the boss will not take damage at any other time. The locations of the energy ball formation and the Wily Capsule are always separate from each other. Strategy. This is the only boss in the game that is completely immune to the Mega Buster, but nevertheless takes damage to 2 weapons. The most notable weakness is Pharaoh Shot, doing a whopping 6 damage at full power. It can very easily aim to hit him if he's above or below you, and the Pharaoh Shot staying above your head makes it easy to hit the boss when he's directly on top of you. The only other weapon that can damage the capsule is Ring Boomerang, but it only does 1 damage and should be saved as a last resort if you do not have enough Pharaoh Shot. But if you run out of either of these weapons, the fight is unwinnable and you're forced to die and grind off the Imorms in the stage for more ammo. When it comes to dodging attacks, you obviously want to avoid the energy ball at all costs, and if Wily appears in reasonable position relative to where you are and where you are facing, that's when you can throw an attack. On occasion, Wily may appear directly in the center and possibly spawn on top of you for a cheap shot, so try to avoid staying there when the energy ball forms. You only need to hit Wily 5 times, so being patient is never a setback. He goes down quickly too. Just keep up the pressure and you'll have conquered all the bosses of Mega Man 4. With all of the bosses discussed, I will split up this outro into 2 parts. Part 1 is where me and Fan share my data, and Part 2 will be us bashing our opinions against each other. For Part 1, we each have made a couple tier lists to quantify our research, one for Buster Only difficulty, and one for weapons allowed. For these lists, I fought the bosses each 10 times in a row to calculate how much damage I took within those 10 battles, and if there were any ties, I broke the ties by doing more rounds. For weapons, I defaulted to either the main weakness or the ones I preferred to use, and I did not break ties. What about your data, Fan?
Well, I repeated the same formula as Dem, fought each boss 10 times in a row, and broke any ties necessary. For those ties, let's just say my hanky is sopping wet with tears.
Now for our personal opinions. This time we'll discuss each boss in order instead of working our way up from the bottom, just because we have different opinions. Ready, Fan?
Ready to go!
Alright, what would you give Bright Man?
Outside of Toadman, Brightman is my least favorite Robot Master to fight in the game. While there is a way to prevent his Flash Stopper, it does feel a bit unfair that you have to take force damage while frozen. Well, it's more like having a high chance of taking damage, but you know what I mean. I also wish that he had a unique move outside of Flash Stopper, because a lot of bosses shoot bullets, which just feels a bit lame if I'm gonna be honest. His boss fight isn't great, I'll give it a 3.
Brightman's a 2 in my book. His mechanic behind Flash Stopper is terrible. Nothing should be specific to certain hit points in Mega Man. He expects you to bypass it a certain way if you want to avoid force damage. I always thought you should instead look away to not get blinded. You mentioned Toadman before, so I think I know what your stance is for him.
0. Do I need to say more?
Wow, big dip from Brightman, huh? I would give him a 1. I don't think his fight was tested. You could just bully him into submission. It's funny, I remember seeing this tagline in an online magazine somewhere that promoted the game with, I kid you not, Toadman will keep you hopping.
And even though he's
Jeez.
meant to be the easiest, his attacks are really lame. Like, the only interesting thing about Toadman is his Rain Flush, but even then, he'll never use it when you spam bullets. God!
How about Drillman?
That's an interesting one. I think I'll give him a 5. Drillman's moves are really fun to dodge with the exception of his dive. This single move can ruin an experience depending on how many times he does it. He's already gonna do it once, the more he does it, the more it can sour the experience.
I will also give him a 5 because of how volatile he can be. I think his Drill Bomb walk is expertly crafted, but his attack choices make or break the fight. It can vary between a very action-packed battle or just sitting around. You're not even doing anything, just wasting away. Stupid defective dime missile. Now how about Ferroman?
I think Ferroman is the best Robot Master to fight. His attacks are all fun to dodge, if you're not using Flash Stopper, of course. I also really like the versatility of the attacks he puts out. My only complaint is that depending on distance, Ferroman can spam Ferro Waves for the majority, sometimes the whole fight. One last thing that I really like is how his secondary weakness can give him an alternative playstyle if you don't want to just sit on your ass spamming lemons. I'll give him a 7.
7? That's a little generous. I'd say 5.
5? Damn, that's a bit too strict, don't you think?
I will agree with you. His attacks pack a very good versatility, and on a good day, he puts them to effective use. But I can't ignore the repetitiveness of those Ferro Waves. It makes him predictable, ruining said versatility. And the way Flash Stopper was designed as a weakness just came off as button-mashing mindlessness. Now, what would you give Ringman?
Ringman's a 4. The only boss based on a set pattern is a nice break from RNG, but the pattern itself doesn't really cut it for me. Like Brightman, Ringman just needs another move. Heck, even 2 to make it really good. Making the ring boomerangs aim at you like in Game Boy 4 would be a great move.
He's a 4 for me as well. It's nice that he's not random, and I do like that his attacks are fast, but a set pattern is a set pattern. A very short one too. Now we have Dustman.
Now, why do I get the feeling you're going to go haywire over Dustman?
2 out of 10.
I fucking knew it.
There's no cohesion to this fight, and Dustman doesn't even use his Buster. He has the same problem as Drillman too, spending most of the fight being invincible, with an attack stolen from Magnet Man. At least that guy made it interesting with his fast movement, but Dustman is just a full-on couch potato, and I hope someone jams a ring boomerang into his mouth tonight so he can choke and die tonight!
No! While I do agree that there's no cohesion whatsoever, I think the boss fight isn't as bad as you think. I do think that either the arena should be spiced up a bit or Dustman could be faster. Also, the 6-second suck is very annoying. 4 out of 10. Now come along, Dem. Go put some water in your mouth or you're gonna burn this video to smithereens.
I'll give you some water with my thoughts on Dive Man.
Best boy?
1 out of 10.
What?!
He's a Mega Man 1 boss, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Man, but he's best boy! I will admit that Dive Man is not rocket science when you learn to dodge his movements, and I also will admit that it's not the most interesting boss. But I don't think that puts him at a 1. After all, he's best boy, so I'm gonna have to give him a 10 out of 10. Oh shit! Uncle, he's a 6! A 6!
You've been spared.
Dive Man will still forever be best boy, though.
Do you have anything for your case that isn't best boy?
Skullman.
Sigh, not what I meant, but we can't be on one guy for too long. I give Skullman a 3.
Same.
He has a nice idea, but he's completely submissive to whatever you do, and you can take advantage of him. And the way he uses Skull Barrier serves zero purpose.
Agreed. Like Dustman, Skullman would have greatly benefited from a changed arena. I also think that it would have been really cool to see Skullman do something else with his barrier, like in Rock and Roll, where he absorbs it to show you to charge shot.
You're using a fan game to make your case?
Of course! I can also use ROM hacks too, you know.
Let's not stray too far. We have 8 fellas down, 8 more to go. On to Fortress bosses. What is your stance on Mothraia?
I think Mothraia is a really cool concept. I genuinely like how it can interact with the arena, giving you a disadvantage, like other bosses such as Pico Pico Con. One thing I did learn while doing my weapons run is that the hitbox for Mothraya's weak point is also very, very skinny. Other than that single complaint, it's a really satisfying boss. Simple but does the job right. 7 out of 10.
I still stand by Mothraia being the best boss in the game, and for that, she also gets a 7. I can't put her higher because she's a bit too slow for my liking. Still, she's up there with Mecha Dragon and Yellow Devil on how to do a first Fortress boss right.
Now for Square Machine. I think that this is the best boss in the game.
Oh god, Fan. In all my time that I knew you, I didn't think you would stoop to such a low point with a claim like that.
Buddy, you gave Yellow Devil Mark II a 6.
Yes, I still stand by that. But really, what is your reasoning for Square Machine?
I really like the concept of Square Machine connecting and disconnecting itself, and even attempting to crush you.
I see.
I really like how you can battle the boss inside the mechanism itself, and the fact you get to deal massive damage coming out of there is so satisfying. My one and only complaint is that it's a bit too easy. This is how you do a Fortress boss in a great way. 8 out of 10.
From my point of view, I do like the challenge of hitting the weak point consistently. But Square Machine has the same problem that Drillman and Dustman do. Most of the fight can have very little interaction going on, thanks to RNG. Also, you cannot tell me a boss with jank like this deserves a score that high. I give Square Machine a 4 instead.
Well, I can tell you this, the jank is absolutely hilarious. Though it can sour the experience. If the jank was gone, this boss would have gotten a 9.
Now for Cockroach Twins. This one is 2 phases. We discuss each phase, then mesh them together for a total of 3 rankings. I'll start it off. Phase 1 is a 6. I do like that with him hanging above you, it adds a lot of pressure to dodging his attacks, but that's only if he stays above you. Phase 2 is a 5. I like the evolution of this one walking all around the room, but his attacks are too infrequent. You might stand in place for a good while before you can get in the next good hit, and it doesn't help that the large orb that targets you has a limit to its range. Mesh them together, and the full fight gets a 6 for me.
I do like a lot of the aspects you said, though so much that I share some of the same thoughts. However, I think that the first phase is worse, and it gets a 5 for me. It's really hard to say whether the first phase is good or bad, but one thing that does pester me is that the first phase can put you down to the spike pit unfairly. As for the second phase, it also gets a 5. While I do like the second fight a lot more, the problem this time is that you just sit on one place and shoot charge buster shots until it's down. Sure, you will have to maneuver through projectiles, but this isn't a saving grace for the boss. While I really like the unique gimmick this duo has, I wanted more than this. As I said, this boss is kind of hard to decide on, so it's a 5.
For Cossack Catcher, he's an easy 2 out of 10. That whole sliding bug completely breaks the fight. One that is supposed to be climactic, anticipated as the final battle, until the cutscene drops 4 more levels on you.
I agree. This boss is super anticlimactic.
That's Cossack bosses down. Now we have Wily bosses. Starting with Metal Daddy, I give him a 3. The lack of telegraph for such a damaging attack is awful, but after you learn it, the fight just dissolves into repetition, and the Mets are only tough to dodge if you get stunned.
I hate Metal Daddy. There are so many things wrong with this boss that it makes me go cuckoo. Let's at least start with the positives. I do like that you fight an enlarged version of an enemy as a boss, and how it summons those said enemies. But this boss is unfair! Unless you know the timing of Metal Daddy's jumps, expect to get hit a lot. If not, expect to die a lot. Nor even, expect to game over a lot. As for those Mets, there is no sauce! You cannot tell which formation these damn Mets fall in, and combined with getting stunned, holy shit, that gets rid of the sauce completely. A 1 out of 10.
Moving on to TikTok trash, what's your take? Was it something I said?
Yup. Anywho, while a cool concept of a boss, Taco Trash has no telegraphs, which can mess you up a little bit. Though this doesn't take away anything at all. This boss is another example of how to do it right. I especially like the way to damage the big red garbage disposal. Though, as I said in the guide, the hitbox is really small, so it can be very annoying to get a hit in. I think this is a 6 out of 10.
I would say 6 out of 10 as well. There's a good challenge to stay on the rails for as long as possible, but the lack of telegraphs and a really small weak point are big bummers. It's a lack of polish that needed some more time in the oven. The drill bomb thing is a really nice exploit though. It's one that I doubt anyone would do on their first try, blind.
Well, it's time for the Mad Doctor himself.
What's wrong, Fan?
Wily! Wily! This boss sucks! It's a 0! I hate my machine force so much!
Calm down,
Why? I
Fan.
hate this
Calm
boss
down.
so much!
Explain yourself. Phase 1, 2, both?
Yeah, sorry about that. I rage so much when I get reminded of Wily Machine 4. I hate the second phase so much. To be legitimate, phase 1 isn't that bad. Though it can get boring standing next to that damn machine shooting charged buster shots a lot. Using Rain Boomerang can add a nice challenge though. It's a solid 3. As for phase 2... Okay, knock it off then. This is a video. I hate the second phase if you cannot tell already. It's so boring standing right below the machine to get an opening, and then just getting barraged by huge energy shots. It's so annoying trying to get a single hit in. Though drill bomb being a weakness is a little nice, my point still stands. Phase 2 gets a 0 for me, with the overall rating being a 2.
I would say Phase 1 is also a 3. It's a nice introduction to what Phase 2 will do and doesn't overstay its welcome, but it could have put up more of a fight on its own. And although Phase 2 is way harder than anything else in the game, I am going to play Devil's Advocate and give him a 7.
Disgraceful!
Second to Mothraia.
This is far from a 7!
I get it. Phase 2 is very spammy, but it's not unfair. With enough practice, you can weave in and out of shots, going in the circle that needs to be perfectly balanced, always adapting to Wily's position relative to yours. It's something I think is structured very well, especially for one of the last bosses in the game. It's Dr. Wily. He should be challenging in one way or another, and by forcing you out of your comfort zone to face that music, he delivers very well. Bring both of them together and I give the boss a 5.
I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree. Anywho, now we reach the final boss, Wily Capsule. Personally, it's a whack first start to the chain of capsules. I don't like how much it can jump scare you and deal some unfair damage, but the homing energy shot is well telegraphed, so that's something positive. Nothing much for me to say, so I'll give it a 4 out of 10.
I was considering a 4, but the more I think about this boss, the more frustrated and disappointed I get, so I lean towards a low 3. This first capsule had a unique idea of blending in the darkness, but I don't understand why he can cheap shot you so easily. It's not fun, and it doesn't feel like a final boss either, because it's such a letdown and challenge compared to Wily Machine 4, who we just fought a minute ago. I also think that there's too many ideas copied from Alien. I'd even say half-assed. This capsule gets its own stage, also underground. You fight in a holographic room, and it's immune to the buster, something that doesn't even make sense for a capsule. It frustrates me how this boss is so poorly put together. Unlike the alien where I can fully understand and appreciate everything regarding that boss's design. Not the case with this first capsule, but at least it's short and inoffensive that way. Alright fan, what are your closing thoughts on Mega Man 4's bosses?
I think this roster of boss fights is a mixed bag. There are some bosses that shine, like Cossack bosses being very unique compared to the other 3 games, but then there are also some bosses that are mediocre or even the bottom of the barrel, like the Wily bosses, which are supposed to test your limits. Even the Robot Masters, who are the main cast of the game, can have brain-dead patterns. Don't get me wrong though, I don't hate every single boss in this game. Like I said, I enjoy some of the bosses for being creative or sometimes challenging, but when you have a gut feeling that these bosses were either rushed or not properly executed, just shows how they could have done so much better. It's just a gut-awful feeling. This is coming from someone that's a Mega Man 4 fan.
I get that. With the Robot Masters, most of them rely on contact damage instead of clever attack patterns, and even then, it's not fun. Some of the Fortress bosses do make up for it though, so overall, I'd say this game's boss roster sits in between 1 and 3 for me. Better than Mega Man 1's, but weaker than 3's. Well fan, thank you for helping me out with this video. It's been a really fun experience working with you.
Anytime, Dem. While I wish I didn't have to go so soon, a video must come to an end sometime. Before I take my leave, I want to thank Dem for having me be part of this video. It was a blast replaying Mega Man 4 again, and it was great to have a few eye-openers about this game. If you want to see my YouTube channel, it'll be in the description down below. With that being said, I'll let Dem take care of the rest. Peace!
Bye! Well, that's it for the video. If you like what you saw, consider giving a like and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment if you have something to say, and as per usual, check the links in the description if you want more out of my channel, including my own Discord server, DeMontropolis. I hope this guide will prove useful in helping folks get better at the game and give you a chuckle here and there. With that said, I'll be signing off. Take care, folks.